Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Reed, and I am so honored that you are investing your precious time with me here. So I use the pronoun she, her, and for those using accessibility technology, I'm a 61-year-old female, and I've got ash-colored hair, red glasses, and I'm wearing a navy top, and I'm coming to you from my home office. As a reminder for every episode of Event Contracts Exposed, I am not a lawyer, and nothing that we discuss here should be considered legal advice. This LinkedIn Live episode is all about education, insights, and practical strategies offered by a seasoned, some might say old, event planner, which is me. So for those listening live or on a replay, I would love to see your questions. Today's episode I called Event Agendas, Avoiding Contracting Pitfalls. So the description, if you saw that for today's episode, said that the event agenda often hides small mistakes, or I think more importantly, omissions that can create big problems on site. Yes, there are often inaccuracies in the draft contracts that we receive from our supplier partners, which we need to scrutinize and correct. And then there are often omissions in the draft contract that we as planners need to bring up, discuss, negotiate, and contract. So, what is the event agenda? Well, you might know the event agenda to be called a function agenda. I'm going to use the term event agenda. It's the one I'm most familiar with. The event agenda is usually in chart form and is commonly found within the body of the event contract, but you may also find it as an attachment to the contract. In the typical event agenda chart, one might find the following details. You might find the date or multiple dates of the event, the function start times and end times, meeting space names and possibly floor number, the use of the meeting spaces, the setup styles for the functions, estimated attendance per room and or per function, and rental fees if there are rental fees. After reviewing hundreds of contracts for my association and corporate clients, these are some of the common errors that I see in event agendas. So 1, incorrect dates. I always check days of the week so that they match the actual numeric date, they actually match the proper month and the proper year. So I'm flipping through the entire contract, but particularly in the event agenda, I am confirming with an actual calendar that those days of the week match the day, match the month, match the year correctly. I see function times listed as the actual event hours, and there has been no allowance for setup times and or teardown times. And this is a huge issue for many events. The setup I like the best in an event agenda chart is seeing the overall booked time as a separate line item and then the specific timeframes within the overall time frame. So you might see setup, then breakfast, then meeting, then lunch, then meeting, then teardown. So if the supplier partner wants specificity, show it as the overall time, but then also provide the breakdown. And that will also remind you to include setup and teardown, and will also force the discussion with the supplier partner. Another common area era. I don't know what I'm getting my era and area and era. But anyways, another common error is leaving meeting room locations or names to be determined. And this is a big issue for most. I've actually seen draft contracts using meeting room names that no longer exist. I've seen general sessions be moved from ballroom A on day 1, and then all of a sudden it's in ballroom B on day 2, and it goes back to ballroom A on day 3, when it should have been ballroom A on all 3 days. So there's lots of room for error. And I know that Joan Eisenstadt is probably listening in, and she would tell me, even put in a floor plan with the room names on it so that the physical location of the room might not change, but if names change, you still have a mutual understanding of which room in the venue you're talking about. The fourth error I commonly see is when I look at meeting spaces that are being used on consecutive days, they are often not being contracted on 24-hour holds to ensure that no other group can contract those spaces during the downtimes of your event. So we'll talk a little bit about 24-hour holds. And I also see, number 5, setup styles are often to be determined, which actually kind of scares me because I can't, as a reviewer, I can't go and compare the meeting room size with the attendance, with the room setup, with the marketing specs on the website, etc., to see if the desired setup will actually fit. I always look at the estimated attendance numbers against capacity charts and room setup styles, and I think, will this work? I put my 30 years of planning into play and say, leaving room for aisles and food stations and mobility concerns and stages and AV and decor. Will this actually work? And will it be a comfortable experience for everyone? And the last common mistake for today is incorrect math. I always double check meeting room rental rates for the same space over multiple days. Do they match? And if they don't match, then I'm asking, is there rationale for the differences in rates? And I also double check the total meeting room rental fees, because sometimes there are mistakes in the total too. So those are a few, and I bet if I was to ask folks to put some errors that they've seen in the chat, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or whether you're watching on YouTube, if you could put some of those errors in the chat, I'd love to know them, because I'm always collecting examples, real life examples. So I know that there are more examples to be given, but today I want to offer you a different perspective, if you will, on what else to consider when reviewing the event agenda. So that different perspective is what I'm saying is the event agenda is the launching pad for a lot of additional topics that should be discussed, negotiated, and contracts. So that's my own quote. It's not taken from anybody. It's my own visual, if you will. What else can the event agenda help us do when we're negotiating a supplier partner contract? So what do I mean by launching pad? Well, there are many, many, many topics that impact the operations and the logistics of our events that are often not included in the templated contracts that we receive from our supplier partners. And it is these very topics that specifically address the event's meeting space and food and beverage function needs that we should be discussing, and we should be negotiating them with the supplier partner, and then we should be putting them in writing into the final negotiated contract. So let's look at some, and I'm going to just pause so you've got a moment to snap a picture, because I know that that's what you're doing. I do that. So I want to look at food and beverage functions. So when you think about your event agenda, obviously in most events, it includes some food and beverage functions. So what else, when we think about that event agenda chart, and we're thinking specifically about the meal and food and beverage functions, what else can we be thinking about and then adding into our contract? So I've got here 5 different points of many, but I've got 5 that I want to show you how you should be thinking in addition to what you see in the event agenda. So number 1, what is the venue or the caterer's expectations for staffing different types of food and beverage functions? What positions, such as banquet manager, banquet captain, servers, food runners, what complement or mix of staff will be assigned to that food and beverage event? What will the server to attendee ratio be for each kind of event? If a negotiated ratio is not contracted, the venue or the caterer is left to determine what is reasonable for service staff. And their definition of reasonable may not match up with the client's expectations. So do you want to ensure that your gala evening, the dinner, has a 1 per 20 attendees ratio per server? Or do you want the industry standard that might be more like 1 server per 32 attendees? Big difference in the level of service and the expediency of service if you look at 1 to 20 versus 1 to 32. Do you want to ensure that the bartender to attendee ratio is 1 to 75 rather than an industry norm of 1 to 100? So you can see that we don't normally get these discussions written out in our contracts, but they absolutely impact the operations and the execution of our event. And we need to get those standards or expectations contracted. So the event agenda is forcing you to think about all the different parts of your event, continue those thoughts into what else should I be contracting. Here's number 2. What catering laws are in place in the jurisdiction of the food and beverage function that will impact labor, for example? What are the minimum hours per call for wait staff? What are the maximum hours per call? What is considered overtime for food and beverage staff? In some places, there is even a limit to the number of attendees that wait staff can serve at a banquet. So I give you these few examples to remind you that you need to be mindful and aware of and inquiring about labor laws related to catering where you're hosting your event. Now, many of us, I know, rely on the venues to know that, but in exercising due diligence, it's also up to the client to be aware. And if there are peculiarities or unusual things, probably best to get things in the contract regarding catering labor laws. Number 3, what food and beverage tasks are performed by unionized staff versus non-unionized staff? Are there unionized staff in the venue or on the premise that are due to have their agreements expire before the event dates? That's a critical piece of information to obtain. You want to know, is there a chance that I'm booking 3 years out, but the unionized catering staff expires, their contract expires at the 2-year mark out. So really important detail to know. Another essential piece of knowledge is what training programs and certifications do the banquet and wait staff have? Have all or how many of the staff have been trained regarding alcohol consumption and refusal to serve? Have the staff been trained for safe food handling and food hygiene? Is there dedicated staff per food and beverage function that have been specifically trained regarding allergen concerns? Do staff have training for CPR or using an AED or trained in the Heimlich maneuver? So as we deal with staffing concerns and labor volatility, we want to ensure that our supplier partner is going to be servicing our event with trained, knowledgeable staff and setting out expectations of what that training and certifications might look like. That's our responsibility as the client to ensure, because that speaks to doing due diligence in placing your event in a reputable and safe place for your attendees to gather. And then finally, I also am offering what performance standards and deliverables can the event organizer expect to receive in regards to food and beverage events? How will the supplier partner's performance be monitored and expressed? So I've given a couple of examples that probably will just kind of give you food for thought, no pun intended. All room setups and food service will be completely ready 15 minutes ahead of the scheduled function start time. Now, I know that there are brand standards. We need to know what those brand standards are. Do we need to make some, negotiate some changes to those brand standards to suit our client expectations? Another one might be sufficient buffet lines will be provided to ensure that all attendees are served within 20 minutes. So I know I've been affected by too few buffet lines, and the impact of that, well, we just don't want that to happen for your event. So we want to make sure that we're working with the venue to make sure that we are providing sufficient buffet lines or access to buffet lines to get our attendees through in a timely manner. So how do we measure a timely manner? Number C, all customized meals for dietary or even religious restrictions and for allergens will be delivered simultaneously with their respective courses to ensure equal service timing. I know I have sat beside colleagues who have dietary restrictions and allergies and really been discouraged at the lack of equal and appropriate timing of their meals. So putting that into place and setting expectation for how customized meals are to be treated and served, and then obviously having an opportunity for recourse if that doesn't happen. And I'm going to give you a couple of bonus ones. What about no attendee should wait longer than 5 minutes to be served at a bar station under normal operating conditions? Or what about past beverage trays? So if you think of butlered flutes of wine or champagne or whatever, will begin circulating within 5 minutes of the event's official start time or attendee arrival. If you're doing poured wine at a gala dinner, Perhaps it is that the wine will be poured within 3 to 5 minutes of attendees being seated and refilled as necessary until the entree course is served. Is completed. So each client is going to have their own expectations as to what constitutes good performance, great performance, stellar performance, and getting those expectations into the contract makes it so much easier for everyone. If a contract is silent about the client's expectations, then there's very little recourse afterwards to discuss and perhaps compensate or mitigate for shortcomings. So that's the event agenda in regards to food and beverage functions. I want to now look at meeting space meeting or function spaces, because that's the other main component of the event agenda. And so there's several things when we talk about meeting or function spaces that we need to think about beyond just the access time, the name of the room, things like that. So first off, what are the physical features of the meeting or the function spaces that are being contracted? Is it pillarless? Does it have natural lighting? Is it carpeted, air conditioning? Does it have direct access to the loading dock? What are the amenities about that room that you're choosing that room to host your event in, or multiple rooms? Those that have heard me give talks and teach, you know that I often share a true litigated American case whereby a judge determined, due to the lack of specificity in the contract about features and amenities of the physical contracted space, the judge decided that all that the venue owed the client was equivalent square footage. And in this litigated case, the event had actually contracted a ballroom, an indoor carpeted air-conditioned ballroom. However, they ended up executing their event in a white outdoor tent in the parking lot. The client lost due to a lack of specificity and features. So I can't stress that enough. You need to be clarifying what is it about the physical space that is important to the client and documenting so that if changes need to be made, you are being given comparable or better space and amenities and features. So speaking of amenities and features, what is included? Could it be, are the multiple spaces that are being contracted, are they in close proximity to one another? Are they on the same floor? Are they in the same building? If there's audio, visual, and sound equipment included, if there's Wi-Fi, you're putting down the specifications of the Wi-Fi provisions. If risers are available, complimentary, a certain number of risers per meeting or function space. If dance floor is included, if table numbers and stands might be included as part of a gala evening dinner setup. We think about linens, water stations, remote access to lighting panels. There's so many attributes that we take for granted as included in our meeting space, but yet fail to itemize those in our contracts. So when you're thinking about event space in the event agenda, think beyond that to what is included as far as amenities and features. Then you might want to think about what sizes of standard meeting or function room furniture is available. So does the venue provide 60-inch, 66-inch, 72-inch rounds, or do they work with ovals? And how many of each of those are available to your event? Are there 6-foot versus 8-foot rectangular banquet tables available? And again, how many are accessible to you for your event? Are there classroom skinnies available? How many cocktail or high top tables are available for your event? When and where are linens provided? What kind of seating is available? Are they folding chairs? Are they ergonomic chairs? Is there any option for size inclusive seating that is available? Does theater seating setup have to be locked together? There's so many questions about actually putting furniture in a meeting or function space. Number 4, does the supplier partner have sufficient furniture in their inventory to provide the needs of the event booking simultaneous meeting spaces? So, what inventory has already been committed to another contracted event, somebody else's event? Will the supplier partner agree to put in writing that your event will be furnished with standard furniture simultaneously across all of your spaces without incurring rental costs? And then finally, we're going to finish up with, again, some supplier partner expectations for performance standards and for deliverables. So one might think about that the room setup will be complete by a defined amount of time before the event starts to allow for the event organizer to have rehearsal time in the space, to add any decor installations, to facilitate the placement of table gifts, etc. The second example, the supplier partner will not substitute smaller or different furniture without the event organizer's written approval. A third example, the supplier partner will treat the event organizer's contracted outside third-party suppliers. That's a mouthful. So I'm going to say the supplier partner will treat the event organizer's contracted outside third-party suppliers in a similar and equitable way as they do their own preferred in-house suppliers. So thinking about audiovisual, thinking about decor, thinking about graphics, branding, etc. And I got to give you a couple bonus ones. Here's one. The supplier partner is willing to conduct joint inspections of the meeting or function spaces with a representative of the event organizer, both before any access to the spaces has happened and after vacating the spaces. Quite often you'll see reference to damages. How is that established? How do we know that damages are done to your space by you? And then another final one, bonus one, is that only in the case of an emergency will the supplier partner be able to change the meeting or function space without the express written approval of the event organizer. For those that follow me on LinkedIn, and if you don't, it's Heather E. Reed. I issued a wording warning graphic about a month ago, and it was exactly on substitute space. And the contract that I was reviewing indicated that if the event organizer required the supplier partner to agree not to substitute space, additional charges would apply. To which I wrote, WTH, folks. We have to pay for the venue to not substitute space for the ones that we contracted. So anyways, lots and lots and lots of things to think about. So I hope what you have heard here today has given all of you listening a lot to think about and to really reconsider how you think about the event agenda in particular. When I review a contract, I spend a lot of time focused exclusively on this part of the contract. I spend time reviewing what is there, is it all correct? And I spend even more time considering what isn't there or in the contract anywhere that impacts the operations and logistics of the event. So the next time that you review an event agenda, please promise me that you too will consider it as a launching pad for a lot of additional topics that need to be discussed, negotiated, and contracted. So before we close out, as usual, if you are interested in learning more about event agendas and so much more, I would encourage you to take a look at and consider the Certified Event Contract Professional Credential Program. You can find all sorts of information and FAQs about the program at cecp.plannerprotect.ca. And before I leave you, 3 things. 1, I hope you will take the time to register for next month's episode that I'm calling Holiday Hodgepodge, Contracting Odds and Ends, that is being held on the 17th of December. 2, remember that all Event Contracts Exposed episodes live on Planner Protect's YouTube channel. And most importantly, always remember that a well-negotiated event contract isn't just a document. It's your power, it's your protection, and it's your peace of mind. Bye for now, folks.